Hello, welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, APC reacts angrily as Bloomberg tips Peter Obi to win presidential election in 2023. And later on the show, we'll look at the journey so far as Nigeria clocks 62. In the course of the program, we'll take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I have joining me via Zoom the master himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju. Happy Independence to you, BKO.
Happy Independence Day, Ibrahim. We are 62 today.
We are 62.
As a country.
Interesting.
But, we are still limping like a toddler. At 62, a man should be thinking about meeting his maker. But at 62, Nigeria is actually limping like an infant.
All right, we'll definitely talk about that in the course of today's program. But first, let's talk politics. After surveying less than 4,000 Nigerians in September, Bloomberg opinion poll favored Peter Obi to win the 2023 presidential election. This has generated some reactions from the opposition parties, especially the APC, for lacking credibility because it used an app to conduct an opinion poll in Nigeria where 95% of the people do not have access to such apps. With the complex nature of voting in Nigeria, does this look like a mirage, BKO?
Well, there are so many people out there outside of our country who do not know how elections are won in our country, who do not pay attention to some little details that come into play when Nigerians are voting in the general election. I'm happy that Bloomberg admitted in that story that only about 44% of Nigerians have Android phones. No one is even sure of the accuracy of that claim. 44% of Nigerians have Android phones. So if 44% of Nigerians have Android phones, in this kind of survey, what it portends is that you've left out a huge swath, a huge number of people in conducting this survey. And for a survey to actually give Obi 72% out of 92% of the people surveyed, there's no way Obi can score 72% of the total votes in an election. It's just not going to happen. So some of these surveys are too good to be true. Do not bear in mind some of the factors that shape elections in our country. For example, ethnicity is a major factor. Religion is a major factor in determining who wins and where. If you conduct a survey that does not bear in mind some of these factors, then that survey cannot be said to be representative. So this is the thing. Just if out of 92% of people who have made up their minds to vote, you are saying 72% have promised to vote for Peter Obi, then it suggests that the survey is not representative because it has left out a huge chunk of people who do not even have phones, not to talk of Android phones. There are many people who do not have Android phones. Bloomberg has told us 44% of Nigerians don't have Android phones. And I can tell you that in rural Nigeria, a good number of people always come out on election days to vote. These are the poorest of the poor and the elderly. The elderly usually vote a lot more than young people in our country. Even in the last election that we had in Osun and Ekiti, we still saw a huge percentage of elderly people coming out to vote. So for a survey to be representative, it has to capture in sufficient numbers that segment of the voting public, the elderly people, the people in the rural areas who do not even use phones, people who do not have access to electricity, not to talk of using their phones. There are many areas where electricity is not even connected to the national grid, where the people do not have access to electricity, they just get by, where there is little or no presence of government. So a survey of privileged people who have access to Android phones, I'm afraid can't be representative. Yes, we have to admit that Obi is doing very well with his core of supporters. They call themselves the obedient group. They used to be very active on social media, but we are seeing them more and more now parading the streets, showing that they are actually more in terms of number than many people think. So the OB group is an energetic group. They are making their presence felt. They've made this electioneering season a lot more eventful than a lot of us had expected. And we are having now, for the first time in many years, what looks like a third force that is being galvanized. But that Bloomberg story also talked about the fact that Obi lacks the national presence that the two other major contestants have, and that Obi needs to do a lot more work to have that the structure across our country to be able to make this kind of surveys count. So the survey indicated that 72% of decided voters will vote for Obi in that election, and 45% undecided. Those who have not decided to vote, 45% of them are saying they will vote for Obi. So that survey also tells us that 16% of decided voters have decided to vote for Tinubu. That's those who have decided to vote in the election have decided to vote for Tinubu. And 23% of undecided voters have made up their minds to vote for Tinubu. So that Bloomberg survey also says that 9% of decided voters will vote for Atiku, and 17% of the undecided voters will vote for Atiku. So these are interesting times. These surveys have galvanized the obedient group in a very remarkable way. But I'm sure that they know that there's a lot more work to do. No one is underrating them, but I want to see a survey that is truly representative, not a survey for only people who have Android phones, not a survey even for only those who use phones. I've said it before that outside of Nigeria, even in the US, landlines are used to conduct this kind of surveys, because the landlines are very, very credible and very representative. It means that someone within an household has been spoken to. But a person can actually have up to 4 or 5 SIM cards, you know, which means that if we vote, one person can actually vote 3 or 4 or even 5 times. In a place where we have infrastructure issues like our country, there are people who have up to 4 phone lines, you know. But in the US, they will use the landline, which means that they are sure of one person from that household, you know, so which makes it more credible than a situation in which one person can actually afford to vote like 4 or 5 times because he has multiple SIM cards.
All right. That's
so I'm not surprised that the APC guys are angry. No one will see a survey that gives no Tinubu supporter will see a survey that gives Tinubu 16% and gives Obi 72% and take that kind of survey seriously. They will not just take it seriously. It will even anger them. It's like a dribbler on the football field taunting a defender. When you taunt a defender, you risk your legs being chopped off by the angry defender. It will show you his hard thoughts, and you will leave the match in notice. So I'm not surprised that they are angry. If I was one of his minders, I'm going to react angrily as well, because I know that this survey is not representative of reality in the real sense of the word. But we must admit that the OB group is doing very well. They are showing their presence across our country. They are showing that they can mobilize themselves. They are showing that they can do street parades. They are not afraid to do street parades. They are trying to show everyone that they mean business. But it takes a lot more than that to win an election in our country. Other factors must come in. I'm sure the Bloomberg people didn't look at ethnicity. They didn't look at religion. They didn't look at even pecuniary benefits that they give people on election day.
Absolutely.
So the richer candidate will do well, because these days they simply buy the conscience of our people on election day. So politicians now keep the bulk of their money for the last few hours to the election.
All right, BK.
And even on election day.
All right, BK.
So that's it.
Yeah, correct. Allow Teride says, I don't agree with the polls because the sample population is too small for such conclusion. Also, Victor Patrick said, let nobody be moved by emotions. There are no surprises in Nigerian national elections. By December, January, it will be clear who will emerge the winner. Well, we need to move on because of today's commemoration of Nigeria's 62nd birthday. I'm not sure what exactly has been on your mind when Nigeria, or as Nigeria marks its anniversary at 62. In terms of the economy, should we marry or worry?
We should be much more worried. We should be worried about the future of our country. We should be worried about the direction our country is headed. When you look at countries that became independent about the same time as Nigeria, you cannot help concluding that we've done badly as a nation. No doubt about it, Nigeria has had wonderful moments, happy moments, when you see us triumph on the football field, winning the World Under 16 World Cup in 1985 for the first time. Nduka Ubade led his colleagues to bring that honor to Nigeria. And we've seen Nigeria win the Nations Cup too in 1980, during the Shagari era, when Christian Chukwu led Odegbami and others to triumph on home soil. Then we've seen a good number of our entertainers doing very well. Rema collaborating with a Mexican American artists and doing very, very well. That's the Zelina. We've seen Ruga, we've seen Fireboy, a good number of them doing very well. Wizkid, and even Burna Boy, the first African to sell out the Madison Square Garden. This gives you every reason to be happy as a Nigerian when you see these young people, very creative people, doing our country proud. You feel proud as a Nigerian. We've done well in some areas, but in terms of governance, you cannot say that we are where we should be, because just ask yourself, at 62, where was India? Are we where India was at 62? The answer is no. Singapore gained independence in 1965 after Nigeria. Are we where Singapore is? Whereas at independence, Nigeria, Brazil, Singapore, India, we were on the same level. And Nigeria was seen as the great African hope in terms of our GDP, in terms of the good news coming from our continent, from our country. But we've not been lucky to have a succession of good leaders who will lead all of us, shepherd all of us, Nigerians, onto the path of real growth and development. While we have been literally overgoverned, the misgovernance of the Nigerian people is very evident. In fact, I can say Nigerians are actually self-governing themselves. In your home, you provide your own electricity, you provide your own water supply, you build a house, you must put a borehole, you provide your own water supply. In your street, you join others in building your road. You know, sometimes you do not have transformer, you join others in paying for a transformer. That's self-governing. Your own security, you provide your own security. These are things that government should be doing for our people, but our people have ended up doing it for themselves. That's why I said, look, Nigerians are actually self-governing. So when you look at where we are currently, honestly, your blood will boil. There was a time when, in the 70s and even 80s, when certificates from India were being rejected in Nigeria here. People will not accept, employers of labor will not accept certificates from India. Today, India has come out of that era, a much stronger country. India has become the destination of choice for Nigerians who are into medical tourism. Hospitals have collapsed, health services have collapsed in our country, and those who can afford it now go to places like Egypt, even Cameroon. Some Nigerians in places like Adamawa State would rather go to Cameroon for Medicare. So things are getting worse for our people. Insecurity, even the economy is not doing well. Nigeria is called the giant of Africa. By that, we should demonstrate that we are real giants of Africa. But when we are taking our cue from the fellow African countries, then you cannot say that that we are true giants of the continent. At 62, we've used 16 heads of state, 8 of them military rulers, and 2 of those military rulers came back as civilian presidents. That's talking about Obasanjo and Buhari. We've had just one prime minister who ruled from 1960 to 1963 and gave us that first Niger bridge. You know, Zik, our first president, ruled from October 1, 1963 to January 16, 1966. 3 times the military dethroned civilian presidents in our country. So when you look at what we are going through now, wars and conflicts, terrorism, kidnapping, leadership failure, infrastructure deficit, ceaseless borrowings, and clearly our debt profile is rising, and we are finding it difficult to match the debt servicing with the volume of revenue that we are generating. Of course, there is political and financial corruption rampant in our country at this time. So these are signs of a failing state. These are signs of a failing state. But Nigeria still has an opportunity to retrace its steps. And an opportunity beckons for us to choose a new set of leaders. Are we going to get it right? Are we going to choose leaders that will make matters worse for us? Because somebody said some time ago that every leader that replaces another Nigerian leader has managed to be worse than the leader that replaced.
That's a very bad thing.
You do hear me?
I heard you. I heard you.
Yes. So, is that what we're going to get in 2023? If we get that in 2023, then Nigeria's path to becoming a failed state will appear to be already paved. It will appear that we are on an irreversible journey to becoming a failed state. We are a failing state now, but we have an opportunity to change things for the better. We can't continue to look at Malaysia that came to our country to take palm fruit seedlings. Today, Nigeria is importing processed palm oil. We don't even produce enough palm oil in our country. We are importing crude palm oil. We are even still importing crude palm oil, and we are importing processed palm oil. If you enter some of the department stores, you will see processed palm oil coming into our country.
Right,
a country so blessed as ours should not be going through what we are going through. Honestly, it has not pleased God to bless us with very good leaders. I will say that they may not like it. The sycophants who take money from them may not like it. But the truth is, it has pleased God to bless Nigeria with so much potential, with so much natural resources. Name it, lithium, gold, everything we have in abundance here. Gypsum. But it has not pleased God to bless us with the kind of leaders that will be able to harness the boundless potential that our country has and take us to that promised land.
Thank you. Yeah, yes. We have three things we are meant to look at. You know, we've talked about the economy, we'll look at the national cohesion, and then infrastructure. So let's quickly see how we can cram the remaining two aspects of discussing Nigerian issues. In virtually, every family in Nigeria today, you'll find mixed tribes who have intermarried and coexisted. Even in football clubs, you find different tribes playing for clubs other than their own state. What does this say about the level of our national cohesion?
I think that the biggest achievement we've recorded as a nation is the fact that Nigeria remains one. We've survived a civil war. Not many countries survived a civil war. We survived a civil war and we remain one. That is the biggest achievement that I can point out in 62 years of nationhood. Many people predicted that Nigeria will break up. Before any major election, they will make all kinds of predictions. But somehow, Nigeria has remained united. Nigeria has been indivisible. We just need to work harder on that. And I want to give kudos to the leader, some of our leaders post the Civil War. The steps that they took to ensure national cohesion. For example, the unity schools. The unity schools were created to ensure that the unity of our nation is deepened. You have a situation in which a primary school student gains admission into a federal government college, maybe in Warri. He's based here in Lagos. He's never been to Warri all in his life, but he had to go to Warri to attend the federal government college. Some, I remember even Shehu Shagari, Shehu Shagari, the late President Shehu Shagari, his children were students of federal government college, Ilorin. So you can imagine all the way from Sokoto, sending your children to go to school here. And then the National Youth Service Corps also has helped to unite us as a people, get us to conquer uncharted territory, places that we never imagined that we could get to. Get to those places, know ourselves better as a people, understand ourselves better as a people, and then help unite us as a people. There are many people who went for youth service and they met their life partners there. An Igbo man goes to Yoruba land, ends up marrying the Yoruba woman, you know. So this is an area where we need to improve. I must admit that at this time, Nigeria is divided along ethnic and religious lines. No thanks to some of our leaders who believe that the way to galvanize their own narrow basis is to pander to ethnic and religious sentiments. Shame on those leaders who have tried to divide us as a people. But in spite of everything, Nigeria still remains united. We came up with the idea of a federal character principle. I know that it's been breached. It is an act of dishonesty to your nation and selfishness. It even shows lack of patriotism to undermine the structures that have been created to make us more united as a people, to make Nigeria to be run in a much more inclusive manner. So those brushing aside federal character principle to favor people from their ethnicity, from their religion, they should be ashamed of themselves, because these were things that were created to make us more united as a people. And I'm telling you, if not for those brilliant steps taken in the past, Nigeria would for long have been dismembered as a country. But we've got to give God the glory that in spite of everything, in spite of what we've been through as a country, we remain one, even after surviving a civil war.
Absolutely, Mikhail. Yeah, so we're running out of time. Let's see how we can quickly discuss this very last issue, still relating to Nigeria's 62nd birthday. We have a lot of people who are looking to desert this country to seek greener pastures. Ask a lot of them for this reason. They'll tell you, among other things, the kind of quality infrastructures they tend to enjoy. Have we made much positive strides in terms of infrastructure development?
Yeah, we made strides in the past, but things are not difficult for us as a nation now, and infrastructure has continued to suffer as a result. Since the economy began to struggle, since the Babajide years, when it came up with the structural adjustment program, things have been going steadily down, not just in terms of the economy, but even in terms of infrastructure delivery. I was asking someone that, look, if we were to build the Third Mainland Bridge at this time, Is it even possible? How many Nigerian banks will come together to bring the money? You know, so infrastructure deficit is apparent, is getting more and more apparent because states and even the federal government can't find the funds to freshen up infrastructure and to even build new ones. So what we can do going forward is to do what we call the PPP, whereby the private sector gets involved, build infrastructure, and then delivers to the government after some years. You know, this will help us to make up for the lack of sufficient funds to build infrastructure. So it's such a difficult thing these days. But you can imagine, some time ago, we built Abuja from the scratch. And Abuja is our federal capital today, easily the most beautiful city in our country. You know, so much money went into that. Can we find that kind of money to build Abuja, to build another Abuja if we wanted to, or even build Gwarimpa, which is the largest estate in West Africa? Can we find the money? So money is a big challenge these days to infrastructure development. And you can see, if not for Abacha that looted so much that we had to, and some of the money was repatriated to Nigeria, we found money for the second Niger bridge. We found money for the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. We found some money for the Abuja-Kano dual carriageway, thanks to the Abacha loot, you know, and some money from the sovereign wealth fund. So when the country is struggling and spending virtually everything, every revenue it makes to service debt, there's no way infrastructure will not suffer. But you've got to give credit to previous rulers of our country who built some of the infrastructure that we are still enjoying today. The ports, the refineries, you know, the Kaduna refinery delivered in 1980. We have to give credit for some of the strides that we have made. Those big giant sporting arenas, the National Stadium, and the rest of them that were built in the past. They are still useful to us. But as I've said earlier, paucity of funds will impact negatively going forward on delivery of infrastructure.
Yeah, right, Bikio. Let me quickly rush through some of the comments here before we call it a wrap. Fabian Akeze says Nigerians must stop believing that a messiah will arrive and transform the country with a magic wand. Rule of law must prevail in Nigeria. Nigerians must be law-abiding. Alag Terele said, I agree completely with BKO that we have not done well, especially governance. We are miles behind in the Committee of Nations. As far as good governance is concerned, we are a laughing country. Niger says, did black countries sign some treaties to demilitarize? Another one, Victor Patrick says, Nigerians only needed confidence from the government, but President Buhari government was only condemning instead of issuing firm statements directly to threats the nation was facing. Well, I blame his handlers. Okay, so there's a question here which I would like you to respond to as a way of wrapping up. Nelson Adufe Samuel says, BKO, is there a solution system this country can imbibe to run Nigeria and Nigerian in a more sensible way so that our kids won't say the same story?
A lot of things have to change. A lot of things have to change. We have to even look at the Constitution. Certain things need to be amended because I don't think that Constitution is the best that we can have. No, I want to believe that some portions of that Constitution must be amended. Then we need to build a new core of leaders. Our leadership recruitment module is a faulty one. They just, it's a politician somewhere who is strong, just ensures that his own people get to power. That cannot take us anywhere. We need a new crop of bright, young individuals brimming with ideas. We need them to come on stream. Leaders that will reduce the cost of governance significantly, because the cost of governance is bleeding the country. If need be, maybe we just need the Senate or just the House of Reps, because the presidential system that we adopted is too expensive, and we are just being wasteful as a country. I want to see a crop of new leaders emerge across board in our country. Leaders who have bright ideas, leaders who can turn things around. And we have them sufficiently in our country. We have them. No doubt about it. We have them. Nigerians are doing very well outside of our country. You will even see President of the US tapping up Nigerians and giving them responsibilities. A good number of them, if they have the chance, they will do a good job of running their country. So I hope that with more and more young people coming into politics, we can begin to produce a new set of rulers who understand what it means to run the economy properly, leaders who can engineer real growth and development. That is what we need to take us out of the woods, because where we are now, we need revolutionary steps to be taken so that Nigeria can regain its pride of place in the Committee of Nations. I know that Nigeria that every one of us will be proud of is possible. But it can only be possible when we vote for the right leaders.
Absolutely.
And we also play our part.
Absolutely.
As individuals, we have to play our part.
And that's our show for today's edition of Issues with Jide. Special thanks to you, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, for those insightful analyses, as always.
Thank you, Ibrahim. We'll do this again next week.
God willing.
Happy Independence Day celebration to you and your family.
Thank you very kindly. And thanks to you too, our audience, for joining us on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. We are at TVC News NG. I'm also at Ibrahim TVC News. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.